Hey, folks, we're live. Welcome to the program. Well, at least the pre-program. We're going to be starting up in just a minute. We've got the audio recording for the archives over on Odyssey Radio. That's already started recording. We just clip off the superfluous stuff at the beginning and the end. We don't record the captain's cabin at the end, although those show over on YouTube and on the Facebook Odyssey Radio page. Those keep playing. I got to find out if there's a way I can shut those off so we don't pick up all that extra stuff over there. But you can go over to both of those places and see that live. Now, nobody can hear this unless you're in the YouTube channel or on the Odyssey Radio channel where the video's playing. So let me get my glasses on so I can read better. These are my computer glasses. So I just said, I just need a plain old black rimmed pair for doing my work. And my regular glasses are around here somewhere. I don't know where. By the way, there's my bag o' pills. Those are the pills I have to take every single day. So I got to refill my pill box. And hey, Ro, do me a favor. Go around the back side and plug that into the audio port for me, please. I got to have my headset on, otherwise you'll get feedback. There's Rainey belching in the background. Hey, Rainey. Oh, that was release of gas, she said. Okay. All right, we'll buy that. Perfect, thank you. And hi, Uncle Dave, says Ellery from the background. Hi. And there is Rowan Claire Roberts.
I don't see it. Why you always call me by my full entire name?
Rowan Claire, because I liked Rowan Claire. I like that. I used to call you that all the time. That's Rowan Claire.
Yeah, Claire used to be the name of my best friend, but she's not anymore.
Well, there you go. Hey, Romeldian, good to see you. Field Guy, good to see you. Barbie D, nice to see you. And Carly Sagan.
What?
And I used to mistake you. I said this before. I used to think Carl Sagan. Who's using Carl Sagan's name? It's Carly Sagan, the female version of Carl Sagan. There's Steve Clark. And Steve, I got your message earlier. Thank you. Looking forward to that. We'll have to do a tasting online. Roger Rabbit's here. David Kessel is here.
I'm here.
We got, We got a minute and 25 seconds left before we go live. And this is our pre-show, if you don't know. Uncle Dave is here. Dave Potter. Uncle Dave, says Rainey. Come over and say hi, Rainey. You got a minute to do it.
No, it's my spotlight.
Oh, it's your spotlight. Got it. Got it. Here comes Rainey. I can't move the camera right now, so you can come in and say hey. Hey. There she is. There's my beautimous wife.
I gotta fix the toilet.
She's got to go turn the toilet back on.
I'm gonna go show Mom something cool about the toilet.
Okay, you go show her something cool about the toilet. Maybe that'll be a show sometime. Something cool about our toilets. So if you're here and I miss you, Susie Q, I see you there. She's worn out. She'll be listening outside a chat tonight. And Ryan Gale, good to see you. Yeah, your face is going to... Ryan says your face is going to stick like that, Rainey. Ryan says your face is going to stick like that. Too late. All right, guys, we got a few seconds. We're going to go black, and we'll come back up after the intro. Stand by.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Intrepid radio program. I am your host, Scotty Roberts, right here on Odyssey Radio. You can go over to Odyssey Radio at ODYSY1. No, there's no one anymore. ODYSYradio.com. OdysseyRadio.com. You can see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. You can see all the other shows that are lining up over there. You can listen to archives all throughout the day and live shows when they play. You can check out the show schedule. And this show will replay tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. That's Central Standard Time. 10 a.m. Eastern, and so on, and yada, yada, yada. Now, you can go over, by the way, and listen at Odyssey Radio. You hear this show in its audio format only. So it's radio. It's a radio station. And if you want to watch the video, you come on over to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Scotty Roberts. You can join the chat room that's live over there. You cannot comment and call into the show unless you subscribe to the channel, however. So if you aren't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. And also you can join the channel if you'd like. Hit the join button down below. You'll see some options there. You can also watch this video stream with a chat room over on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Odyssey Radio, ODYSY radio.com. Now, it doesn't pick up it doesn't share the chats back and forth between the channel except for mine. So if you're over there, you won't see the chat room over in the YouTube. I would highly recommend going to one of those if you want to watch the channel and join the chat. The most chatting that goes on with the Intrepids is over in the YouTube channel. So there you go. That's where to go. That's where to see things. That's where to enjoy the show. And I hope you are enjoying the show. I'm enjoying it. I enjoy doing it. I love doing this show. I love talking about stuff. And I've always said about doing radio or any of the other things that I've been involved with that I will do them as long as they are fun to do. And I enjoy this. Now, I look at it this way. I don't go out drinking with the boys. I don't go bowling. I'm not a hunter, so I don't go out hunting. I don't have anything. I don't have any problems with hunting. I just don't go out hunting. I don't go fishing. I could. I'd fish. I just don't. I just don't fish. I haven't fished in a long, long time. So I've got all these things I could do and I don't do. We go places and do things and see things. I love ghost hunting. And we go do that in paranormal investigation for those of you who are highbrow. So what do I have left is a grown-up male who's busy all the time. I like doing my radio show. That's what I do. That's where I rub shoulders, at least virtually, with all of the other Intrepids over there, and we talk. And by the way, there is still something that I'm not going to give you any details, but I'm still planning this with Russ, the old owner of Odyssey Radio, sometime maybe late summer, early fall of this year. We are thinking of trying to organize a trip, and we've already got some details put together. We just aren't going to announce it yet till we put other details together. But seeing if anybody wants to join us up in Ticonderoga, New York, to go visit the Star Trek original set tour. Now, any of you who are into Star Trek, or if you're like me and you grew up on the original Star Trek, these are the sets that were rebuilt by one of the guys that was doing the fan films. And he put a hell of a lot of money into these. He got the blueprints from the old Desilu studios from the 60s, and he rebuilt the sets in the layout that's the same layout that was used for the original television show. And he has, over the years, built this thing up to where it is really an exact replica of what they had at the Desilu studios. They could film the old Star Trek series on these sets. And so we're planning on going to see that. I've been to Ticonderoga, but I was there the last time in 2001 when we did reenacting with the 42nd Royal Highlanders, the living history group I was part of, reenacting battles from the French and Indian War. And the last time I was there, we were there with about 12 to 1,500 other reenactors, everybody from the 42nd Royal Highlanders to all different regiments of the British Army that fought in the French and Indian War, all the way over to the French who fought, and Indian tribes who fought in those wars. And we recreated battles down on the field below the fort. And you've heard some of them before. We'll tell them again, not tonight, but some of the ghostly stories we have from that site. Matter of fact, when you are there, you're not allowed to even dig a fire pit when you set up your campground. We set up recreate an historical 250-year-old looking campground for the military. And you can't dig a fire pit because they don't want you putting any shovels, even a spoon into the ground for what you might find beneath the ground. This was an old battlefield. And so they put down big steel, heavy, thick steel plates, and you build your fires on top of those. So anyway, that's the place. That's where it is, Ticonderoga, New York. And so we'll let you know if there's any details to spread. If we get this nailed down with the powers that be and we actually create this trip, I think it might be fun for a lot of us to go and partake in this. It'd be a long weekend in September. And drive out to or fly out to and rent your car, whatever you want to do out there in Ticonderoga. So we'll see what happens. I'll let you know when we start talking about it, if it becomes a real thing, a real live thing. And that's what I got on that. I want to show you guys something from, we talked about this yesterday. Now, you might look at this and say, this is politics. Well, it's not politics. This is something here. I got to look it up. I got to relook it up because my internet dropped here, as it does all the time with our cheap internet here out in the country. I got to find our, let's see, video that I want you to see. Here it is. And I'm going to open this up.
Vice President Biden.
I'm not going to start that yet, quite yet. I just loaded it in. This is the video I talked to you about yesterday. And I put up a post about this today. Now, lest you think this is politics, there's so much politics that can be drawn out of it, it's crazy. But for me, it really demonstrates a very sad thing that happened this Monday. And it was former President Obama's first visit to the White House since he left the White House at the end of his term. And so this is a really sad commentary, I think, frankly. The President of the United States is going to be seen in this video wandering during a White House function. And no one even acknowledges him, not even Barack Obama. Now, there was a little bit because he spoke a little bit for a couple of minutes at the beginning and things like that, and people shook his hand. But you're going to watch this video and see something very sad. And this is news commentary from Sky News in Australia. What this is demonstrating, and it's not just on Sky News, you aren't seeing a lot of it in local news or domestic news, but you're seeing it on news outlets all around the world. And this is the disregard for our president, the weakness of the current president. And when I'm talking about his weakness, I'm not talking politically, although I could. I'm talking about the state of mind that he is in. I said all through the campaign prior to the election that I said Joe Biden had his legacy fixed. He was done. His son had died. He was done. He just wanted to be out of politics. And I think he wanted to just retire and go fishing. And they do say, by the way, of dementia, that personal tragedy like death in the family and things like that are things that can precipitate and make even worse or aggravate a dementia that may already be in progress. Now, you're going to watch this video and you're going to see somebody, you're going to see, first of all, that there's no respect even for the office that Biden currently holds. And is this more than obvious handwriting on the wall for his presidency? He just looks poor and old. He looks like a poor old man wandering around, lost in a crowd of no one who pays attention to him or helps him find out where he's supposed to be. Obama brisks right by him without so much as a glance at one point. And he's talking to the crowd. He's talking to a circle of people. And Joe Biden's trying to get his attention. He even puts his hand on his shoulder and calls out his name, Barack. And he's ignored. So I wanted you to see this video because I think it's important for us to see how, this is where it gets political. I'm going to try to be very careful. This is how it's important to see how the Democrats who set Joe up to be president set him up also for a fall. And now that he is not doing well at all, they've completely shunned him. So to all of you who voted for Biden as the better choice for America, do you still stand by him during these times? It's okay to stand for your guy. It's also okay to acknowledge that your guy he's diminished. He doesn't have the ability, but he has disability. And all I've said for the last few years is Biden left the vice presidency with his legacy intact. Now, this kind of thing you're going to view now is going to be his legacy. This presidency is going to be his legacy, rather than him leaving on a fairly high note with, but whether you agree with the Obama administration or not, Joe Biden left on a pretty high note. He was vice president under a very charismatic and successful president, some would say. And so I blame those who pushed Joe into the office. They manipulated him. They manipulated his wife. Who knows what the hell he was offered to run when he really didn't want to. Remember, for the longest time, he didn't even declare he was running. Then when he was running, he never really ran. They hid him away. Now he's been abandoned by his own people. And this news piece that you're going to watch is all over the foreign news. It's talking, the foreign news is talking about the weakness of the sitting American president. All right. Now, having said that, and Morgan Snow, I agree with you. I feel sorry for Joe. I don't agree with his politics. I never did. But I started feeling sorry for him the minute they started running him. Let's play this news story. I think I can make some comment over it. Let's see. I'm going to add this.
Vice President.
Can you all hear that?
That was a joke.
That's where he called Biden his vice president by mistake and tried to pass it off as a joke.
That was all set up.
Just watch what goes on in the background of this video. Obama got a rock star welcome to the White House. Everybody loved Obama. At least in this party. Now here you see Joe, he's shaking some hands. He hops up on stage. He's on stage with Obama. Here signing some executive order. were a number of prominent Democrats, including Speaker Pelosi. And there she is with Obama. So, Obama, you see President Biden in the background. That's where he's trying to get. You can barely see his hand on his shoulder there. And these are just stills and some video from this event. Now, here he is up on stage. His hands go up. He's like, where is it? Where am I supposed to be? Look at the president. This is where he's trying to get Barack's attention. He even called out his name right here. Barack. Right there. Obama didn't even give him acknowledgement. You see Joe Biden's hand on his shoulder. President of the goddamn United States. Sorry, I'm not supposed to say that word on air. Sorry about that. It'll be bleeped out somewhere. Sorry, you can't hear me. The President of the United States should have no respect, if nothing else, given the LDA. There it is. So that was Australian Sky News that reported this. And the sad thing about what we just saw there, no matter what end of the political spectrum you are on or any point in between, what you just saw there was very telling. And it was frankly very poor behavior on the part of the Democratic Party, on the part of the people who were there in attendance. Yes, Obama was the star of the show. He was coming back, but the President of the United States should never walk around like that, not having anybody pay any attention. Now, part of the problem is that Joe Biden is suffering from dementia, I believe, which is a sad thing. I don't wish that on anybody. I don't wish it on Joe Biden. I don't agree with his politics, but I am sad for the man. And I'm sad watching that video and seeing how he was treated by the people that are supposedly the closest to him. He wandered around the room. He had to go grab, I don't know if they showed it in this clip. He went and grabbed when he was walking around on stage, wondering where, with his hands up, wondering where he was supposed to be. He grabbed a woman's hand. I don't know who the woman was. To come up on the stage and walk him somewhere where he's supposed to be. And then he goes out into the crowd. He looked like, it made me feel the way I felt. I have felt on occasions where I'm not in the right place. It's not my place. Or it's not my gig. And I try to get somebody's attention to talk to them. And I basically get ignored. You've been in those, mostly when we were younger, when we were kids. And I looked at Joe Biden and they're looking confused and looking, not knowing where he was, so what he was supposed to do next, who he was supposed to talk to, who was supposed to talk to him. So that is the video we talked about yesterday. Now, I couldn't find a clip that showed the whole thing from start to end. It was 2-3 minutes of going from on stage to shaking a hand to being lost to trying to find Barack Obama, finding him in the crowd, not being paid attention to. One point, Obama walks right past him, looking kind of down. He's heading to a circle of people, and he's looking down, and he walks face to face right by the president, doesn't look at him, doesn't even acknowledge him as the president's looking at him as he goes by. And so this to me is an abandonment, and it is really a very visceral public display, although it wasn't meant to be, I don't think, but a very public display of how his own party feels about him right now and what's happening with the Biden presidency. And C-SPAN, yes, Philip Blair, C-SPAN has some good video. And like Ronald Reagan, I didn't see, Ronald Reagan had dementia at the end. He had Alzheimer's starting to kick in. But Ronald Reagan also held some very tight moments all the way up through. It was mostly once he was out of the office is where it really hit him and he declined. But he wasn't that way year one into his 8 years of presidency. Remember, Ronald Reagan was reelected. They didn't reelect a man with Alzheimer's. Well, they did, and they didn't know it. It just didn't really strike up on him and really start affecting him badly till almost the end of his 8 years. And even then, even afterwards, a couple of years after, I don't know how many years afterwards it was, when he was out of office, he went and he gave a little address to, and I don't remember where it was, but he even acknowledged and he joked and he talked about what he believed, and he talked about being in a diminished state and things like that, and he did it very gracefully. But Philip, I don't think it's much like Ronald Reagan. Not at all. Ronald Reagan wasn't diminished mentally the first year into his presidency. He served for 8 years. I think with Joe Biden, however, you've got somebody that was put into the office and pulled dragging into that office with this already well underway, and that's why they kept him so hidden away. And you've seen the decline. Go look at videos of Joe during the last 6 months before the election, and go look at videos of Joe from last week. And you're going to see quite a difference. Iowa says, do you think the White House soft serve ice cream machine is up to Dairy Queen standards? I think that's a question that Joe could probably answer. And I say that a bit flippantly, but at the same time, I think he could probably tackle that one. I think the reason you always see him putting off detailed answers to detailed issues is he doesn't know. He doesn't know what to say. And I think they try to keep him from going off script. So anyway, all of that, politics aside, this is what's happening to, whether you like it or not, your president and mine. He is the president of these United States. No matter what you think of how he got there, he was sworn in, he was confirmed by Congress. He is the president of the United States, whether you like him or not. And this is the treatment that the president of the United States is getting. And this is the treatment that the world is viewing our president getting. Now, maybe it's important that people see this. And I've got Rainey dancing on the other side of my desk here. So I heard that. You were dancing to the beat of the...
Can I get in on this?
Yeah, will you? Come on over here.
I do not like President Biden, not one bit. And it was completely disrespectful. It was completely disrespectful. He was on his home turf being the president, and that was so rude and so disrespectful for them to not.
It was.
Biden didn't, Obama didn't even turn around. And there was no acknowledgement. Nobody else acknowledged him. That was rude.
Yep. And when he was up there at the podium, Obama, and he had Kamala Harris next to him, and on the other side of her was Joe Biden. Obama said, and it was very quick. It wasn't like a pause with a comic effect for a joke. He said, we have Vice President Biden, and then he said, He stops because everybody kind of chuckled, and he goes, "That was a joke."
It wasn't a joke.
It wasn't a joke. It was a Freudian slip.
Yep.
So,
and obviously that's how Obama still feels and
still views him.
Yep, and treats him, and that was so rude and so disrespectful.
It
Anyways,
was.
That's all I have to say. Just
Thank
super,
you
super
for that input.
disrespectful. I can
That's
talk.
right.
So, anyways, all right.
That's
good night.
right. Good night. That's what I can do that none of you can do. Right there. So, there it is, folks. And I agree. And Morgan Snow agrees with you. Biden fits, says Phil Blair. Now, I could do a political show here. You know that, folks. Rainey just said, don't do it. I'm not going to do it. I got other stuff to talk about. I want to talk about scaring kids. Ooh, maybe I have been already. I want to finish that up a little bit. I have a topic. I got to tell you now. I got a topic tomorrow that I want to talk about. It might take a couple of days for us to get through this. I want to talk about Glastonbury tour. And I'm going to show some pictures. If you haven't seen, does anybody here not know what Glastonbury tour is? And the significance of it, the mythological significance of it. Is anybody here? I know I have. Anybody else been to Glastonbury tour? We're going to talk about that tonight, or tomorrow night. I'm sorry. I was looking it up this afternoon, and I thought, oh, I so want to talk about this tonight, but I can't. So who's going to take care of Hunter Biden if he goes? That's a good question, Iowa X. What's that? There's a great series of Obama-Biden crime-solving novels, said Ryan Gale. Did you write those? Yeah, IOX, that's a good question. Who's going to take care of Hunter? I'm pretty sure you're going to see Joe pardon Hunter for whatever happens, but you can't pardon Hunter prior to him being convicted of something. So is Joe going to last the presidency long enough? That's a good question. Yeah, don't do it. It'll scare the kids. Politics, brains. Yeah, exactly. So Teresa said ancestors. I'm not sure that was in response to something over there. Oh, embarrassing evening for sure, says Teresa. Yeah, and I'm not trying to make any jibe at Joe Biden. Whether you think he deserves one or not, like I have maintained all along since before he was elected, I have maintained that this guy would rather be retired and gone fishing. Yet the party somehow manipulated and convinced him to run. They got him elected. No matter how you think that happened, it happened. And he has gone downhill since that. Now, his handlers are not doing a very good job. So like you see, we could politicize this very quickly. But I feel bad for Joe Biden. I really do. No matter what. Nobody deserves to go out that way. A president of the United States does not deserve to be treated this way. And we're moving on now. So we left off. We were talking last night about scary stories for kids. The kids need scary stories. They need fear. They need the fear factor brought into their lives. And writing a good story, whether I write it or you write it or somebody else writes it, Ryan writes it, or there's just good books out there, good movies and things like that. It is really a good thing for us to recognize the importance of scary stories for kids. And we've covered this for a couple of nights, and we got about 20 minutes left of this show tonight. I want to cover some of this material that from time to time parents and even some educators ask about reading scary stories with young kids. And in some cases, they were concerned about how kids might react to a truly horrifying character or a particularly creepy situation in a story. And sometimes they were worried, these people, that a child might feel overwhelmed by the intensity of a scene. In other situations, they were afraid that kids might believe in the power of witchcraft or magic. That came up with the Harry Potter novels. We talked about that, excuse me, several months ago. Remember Jesus Potter, Harry Christ? comparing the two greatest literary figures in the history of humanity. And if you don't think that that's so, that they are the greatest, you've just got to look at the facts behind that, that Jesus Christ and Harry Potter are actually the two most notable characters in human history, in literature, be it biblical literature or be it religious literature or fictional literature. And so, so the questions were asked about that. When my older girls, who are now 30, when they were kids, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, they were reading all the Harry Potter novels. And their mom, who I was divorced from, didn't want them reading them. But I had sole custody of the kids. They lived with me full time. And I was like, okay, thanks for letting me know you don't like it. Here, girls, here's your new Harry Potter book. And I didn't do it in spite of her. I did it because I disagreed with her. And I even invited her in to watch some of the movies with us, and she wouldn't take us up on that. So while all of these questions raise legitimate concerns, it would never be wise to expose a young child to, say, Stephen King's books or some of the amazing books by Anne Rice, the vampire novels. Scary stories can make a unique and valuable. I'm sorry, did I misstate that? While these questions raise legitimate concerns, and it would never be wise to expose kids to these books, some of these really dark books, those aren't written for kids. There's content in there that's not written for kids. Scary stories can make a unique and a valuable contribution to any child's emotional development. The level of tension or creepiness of characters always needs to be taken into account when selecting a scary story for any child. That's why, like I mentioned again last night, I read for you The Dark by Lemony Snicket. I read for you The Ghost of Nicholas Grebe. Both of them very cool illustrated books for kids. And they're scary to young kids, not so scary to others. Fear of the dark is something that probably all of us have experienced. So, when in doubt, I recommend ask a librarian who can help select from librarian-approved scary stories that are appropriately scary for the age and the maturity of a particular child. Ask an author. Now, I write stories. I don't particularly write scary stories, but I've got a book that I'm working on now, a novel of the 10 Breaths of Ra, and it's set in Egypt of the 1920s, and it involves all the old scary stuff from Egyptian supernatural tales. And so I'm going to recommend my own book. I'm going to write it so kids can enjoy it, but I'm going to write it so more for adults and young adults. And then young adult audience, by the way, is roughly 14, 15, 16 years old. And by the way, if you're hearing kids being naughty and screaming in the back of my radio show, that's because they're not doing what they've been told. And I can't take care of that business right now while I'm on radio, other than to say to you, the listeners, please excuse the fact that you can hear them doing that. That's part of my not having a studio set apart from the family dwelling. So most of you who are regular Intrepeds, you get it. You know my family. You know how it's been. And so sorry about that. So here's a couple of things I want to go through in our remaining time tonight. A few points here. Feeling afraid. Fear is a powerful emotion that some scientists credit with helping our species survive. In fact, most humans have an instinctive fear of snakes, of leeches, of rats or spiders, and crocodiles maybe. Things that growl at us and bare their teeth. The modern celebration of Halloween is one of the most highly anticipated fall events. It's a big thing around here in my town. Big thing with a lot of people I know. And although Halloween originated over 2,000 years ago, Samhain, even before it was called that, with the ancient Celts, today, adults as well as kids look forward to dressing in costume. Visit houses, quote unquote, toy haunted houses, telling scary tales. There's definitely something about feeling afraid that's exciting and intriguing for kids of all ages, from 7 to 75. And so, with this background in mind, I want to argue that scary stories are more important now than ever before in today's increasingly sanitized world. Let's explore how scary stories can effectively contribute to a child's emotional and cognitive development. Number one, scary stories can model powerful life lessons. When we confront fear in a scary story, our bodies experience a rush of excitement from the chemical release of hormones, enabling us to experience and explore our fear from a safe distance. The pleasure of reading or listening to a really good, scary story can be like the thrill of riding a speeding roller coaster around a blind curve and dropping 30 feet only to discover that we're okay and actually enjoying the ride. Both experiences help kids exercise their emotional muscles in a secure place with low risk of physical danger. And frequently, we as adults, we minimize this benefit in improved self-esteem that kids feel when they face their fears and discover that they are actually stronger than they thought. So learning that it's okay to be afraid and that fear can actually be a useful emotion is an important lesson for any child. It's important for my kids. I like to put the fear of God in them sometimes. So experiencing fear while reading a well-written book is a unique way for a child to learn to manage fear in order to achieve a desired result, seeing how the story ends. If a child never learns to experience and manage their fear, then how will he or she ever learn to cope with their fears as they inevitably need to confront situations that can be overwhelming in life? Scary stories provide a unique way to experience fear in a safe place, while learning that fears can be managed and used to move forward. Those are things that we do with scary books. Now, like I said, I don't write scary books per se. Sword in the Clay, which is out now. That book, Sword in the Clay, it's got ghosts in it, but it's not really told in a scary way, unless a kid could listen to that and be a little unnerved by that. Steve Bird visiting his brother and saving his life in the middle of the night during the war. So there are scary portions, but it's not a creepy book. So there are others who write very good books that are creepy books that could be used for kids. Number two, it's okay to be afraid. This is what we teach our kids. It's okay to be afraid. Beyond the thrill or the entertainment factor, we can help children learn that it's okay to be afraid. Ghost stories demonstrate to children that it's not only okay to be afraid, but that fear can be useful in helping them learn how to solve problems. Award-winning author Roberta Simpson Brown, she wrote Queen of the Cold-Blooded Tales, or that's what she's been called, Queen of the Cold-Blooded Tales. And she's a retired educator, believes that scary stories teach children that it's all right to be afraid. She even goes further to point out that scary stories help us to realize that everyone is afraid of something and that it's healthy to face our fears. Unfortunately, our anxieties can sometimes feel overwhelming. And they feel overwhelming for young kids especially. And sometimes I wonder if we're cheating kids, cheating our kids by not giving them incremental opportunities to experience fear and learn to accept that it's okay to be afraid. Scary stories provide a simple, effective way to experience fears and practice managing or coping with anxiety in a very low-risk situation. Teresa Danton in the chat room says having a fear of guns, for example, can lead to the misuse of those weapons, which can lead to serious accidents and mistakes. That's right. Teresa, I always said when Abby and Bryn were younger, when they were real young, like 7 years old, like Ellery's age now. I took them out into the back pastures with some friends who brought guns out. And we let them test fire guns just so they could see. Because I said, you know what? Education eradicates ignorance. I did not want them to be ignorant about guns. So, number 3, learning resiliency. Think about this. Childhood can be a very scary time for kids. Kids are smaller than adults. They have less power than adults. They're dependent on family and sometimes even strangers for care, for feeding, for security. They can be kidnapped easier than an adult. Those factors would be enough for many adults to feel anxious, especially if they were surrounded by people who were physically much larger and who exercised power over meeting their needs. Kids live in those conditions every day. So fortunately, kids flourish. If you hear banging and thumping, that's the wash machine. It tends to sometimes get on a cycle. Rainy's got it going way over in the other room, and I hear it going thump, 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 thump. It's uneven. So it's going to bang for a minute if you hear that. There it is. If you were a kid in bed, you might think that that was somebody out there, a ghost or a monster. So fortunately, children flourish when they learn to use their emotional tools to effectively handle a range of life experiences. And sometimes as adults, we forget that starting school each fall, learning to ride a bike, performing a skit at school, or moving to a new neighborhood are significant challenges for kids and can lead to feeling anxious or even feeling overwhelmed. That's why when we moved here last fall and last summer, we moved to a place that was a neighborhood filled with kids that our kids knew. And they're, a 10-minute walk to school from here. So today we frequently reduce the risks of failing for kids in order to make their lives feel safer. But as a result, scary stories filled with an appropriate level of scary ghosts, monsters, trolls, they might help kids learn how to recognize a threatening situation and how to effectively respond to danger, and even learn how to face their fears to solve a problem, especially when they're scared. And so when a protagonist in a story confronts their fears to resolve a conflict and then conquers a scary, threatening enemy, kids observe a role model for managing their fears and moving forward with their lives. This leads to managing stress when they get older. I believe that combining all these factors we just talked about, entertaining power of feeling fear, learning that it's okay to be afraid, and internalizing resilient role models helps kids prepare to manage the inevitable stresses of modern life. Stories that push kids out of their safe zones may actually build confidence and even foster a greater understanding of how to cope with threatening situations. One thing we know for sure, well-written, scary stories will continue to be loved by countless generations of young readers because they're just so much fun to experience and to share. Over in the chat room, if you're participating in this, what are some of the books that you read as a kid that were scary stories? Those ones that go through the years, that transcend. Name some examples over there. I want to see them. I want to read them in the last few minutes we have. So whenever kids have 10 or 15 spare minutes of time, maybe between assignments, before lunch. I'm not talking about recess. Recess is not the time to sit and read a book. Recess is the time to go out and fill your lungs with fresh air and to play and work out some physical energy. But when you got some time, encourage your kids, slip a book into their book bags. Showing them, hey, I got you this book. Flynn likes to read, my son, and so we're constantly picking up books for him. And I seem to constantly be picking up books that are kind of scary books. I've got one sitting over here on my bookshelf, I think it is. Let me look. Hold on. Because I'm going to recommend it. Here it is. Well, first of all, if I can reach these while I'm doing radio, I want you to see this. Those of you who are in the chat room, you can actually see the covers of the books here too. But one, you don't need to see the cover. I got this. I read this to the kids. Look at this book. You all know this one. The Hobbit. This is my kind of faux leather. Well, no, it's real leather. It's just beat up. It's been read. It's got the gilded edges. I like it. I collected it. And we read this book. I read this book to the kids a few years ago. And this book, it's got its scary moments, but they loved it. I read John Carter of Mars. I've mentioned that as a favorite that I read. And Flynn loved that book by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Edgar Rice Burroughs. I always mix those two Victorian, Edwardian era authors up. This is a book I started reading the kids. And it's not a kid's book. This is a book called The Golem and the Djinn. And it's a really interesting book. And it's a really good story. And now the author's actually written a sequel to this, or another book in the series. It wasn't, I don't think she started it as a series of books. Just a great book by Helene Wecker, Wecker. You see her name at the bottom there. A fantastic story about a man who in the early, I don't know if it was late 1800s or early 1900s now, that he had a golem created for himself, and he wanted it to look like a beautiful woman. He wanted somebody he could marry and love him. But and the golems are attached. But he dies very early in the book. It's almost right away. So I'm not giving away anything. She's left on her own, this golem. And it's she encounters a djinn. And it's the relationship they have and they build. And it's really a very good book. Carrie by Stephen King, says Philip Blair. Teresa loved the Hobbit movies. Yeah, they were very good. Let's see. Matthew Sainsbury, they made 3 movies out of the Hobbit. Rumpelstiltskin is an age-old story that's scary for kids and doesn't ever grow old. Iowa X says, I know about a scary story. They convinced everyone that the flu was a new deadly disease. Now, there you go. That's lapsing into politics, but you got it. Yeah. Stuff like that. Write a book about that, Iowa X. Teach kids how to be scared. The 3 Little Pigs. Perfect, Matthew Sainsbury. Little Red Riding Hood. And these stories, by the way, had deeper meanings at their origination points. So, the 3 Little Pigs. Goosebumps had a book on a hellhound looking at it creeped me out. Looking at it creeped me out. Yeah, Matthew, I read that one to my kids. We read a lot of the Goosebumps books years ago. Flynn and Rowan like those too. I still think there are various levels of fear, says Teresa Dantone, that we don't want to expose children to at such a young ages. Yeah, something just traumatizes them because they're not mature enough to understand. Bingo, bam. That's why I said there are some things you don't want to expose kids to. I don't want to expose my kids to Stephen King. Save that for when they're older teens or into college. You can start reading those kinds of books. As kids, that's a little too much for them. I think of movies like The Exorcist. As old as that is, and as used to that, and maybe immune to that as some of us have grown in our old age, I would never let my kids watch that movie. But I let them read A Monster Calls. Remember, I recommended that book. It was sitting here for a while. We watched that movie, and it was a wonderful movie. Scary, but wonderful. Wonderful message. I'm looking for some of the other books you guys have listed here. Maybe I've already gotten past those, scrolling backwards. So, Well, you can. The point you got it. You got the. Morgan Snow says Phantasm is a movie that scared me. Had nightmares from it. The only one out of the all the movies that I watched. I don't remember that one. Phantasm. I used to, when I was a little kid, I used to get home. Now we're talking the mid to late 1960s, when I was in second grade and third grade. And I would get home. My mother would be at work, and the other kids weren't home yet. I would sit with my back to the wall in the corner and turn on Dark Shadows that started at 3 o'clock every day. And I get home at about 3:08 every day, and I'd watch that and get the bejeebies scared out of me, out of my wits. All right, guys, that's pretty much it. We're out of time for tonight. And so I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank you for giving me your time coming in here. Stick around for the Captain's Cabin, but we're going off air now. So I want to thank you for being here. And you know what? Live long and prosper.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
All right, guess what, folks? We're now no longer live on the radio station. I got to cut them out here pretty quick. And but we are live here in the chat room, and we'll remain live on the Facebook chat room as well for as long as we chat here tonight. And let me cut off our recording, the audio recording for tonight. And we are now at the point where I can cut off the stream, and there now we are off the stream for the night. It's all the technical stuff that a producer should be doing for my show, but I can't afford one, so I do it by myself. But they got me set up so I can do all this stuff by myself. It's just I don't like having to remember it all. And to do it, it's easy stuff, but sometimes just remembering that I got to do stuff is nuts. So, You know, I love the reading of these books, and I love reading them to my kids. And I think if you don't read to your kids, if you got kids at home, read to them. Read to them at bedtime, if nowhere else. Read to them, have a set time of the day. I used to, a long time ago, when my older kids were at home, we had a set time every night that we'd read. And we get out of that mode here. These kids here are so busy and doing so many other things that they don't always want to hear stories read. But I think that that's something we could do. Oh, you can see back here, I got my Bigfoot back here. That casting. I pulled that out today. I got to find a place to mount that. So far, it's leaning up against Sonnenmut back there. And that makes me think of Flynn and I like to watch Finding Bigfoot. Might have been a dumb show for some people. It was a fun show for Flynn. And it had that enough edginess to it that I think it was a little scary for him at times. So let's see. Checklist. They keep planes from crashing. I don't know what that was, Iowa X. But there you go. Be sure to tip your producers, Scotty Roberts. That's right. Hey, listen to this. If you haven't read anything like this for a while, if you're not a reader of books, let me encourage you to read books. Oh, man, they so expand your mind and your imagination. And the more you read, I found that I read so much Shakespeare and I read so much poetry of like Yeats and so on. I started writing that way at times because I picked up on the nuance of the way they wrote. And the same thing with even Tolkien. Listen to this for a couple of minutes. You guys can keep talking. Let's see. Chapter 1. It starts like this: The Hobbit. An unexpected party. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. Not a nasty, dirty, wet hole filled with the ends of worms and an oozy smell, nor yet dry, bare, sandy hole with nothing in it to sit down on or to eat. It was a hobbit hole, and that means comfort. It had a perfectly round door like a porthole, painted green, with a shiny yellow brass knob in the exact middle. The door opened onto a tube-shaped hall like a tunnel, a very comfortable tunnel without smoke, with paneled walls and floors tiled and carpeted, provided with polished chairs and lots of pegs for hats and coats. The hobbit was fond of visitors. The tunnel wound on, going fairly, but not quite straight into the side of the hill. The hill, as all people for many miles around called it, and many little round doors opened out of it, first on one side and then on another. No going upstairs for the hobbit. Bedrooms, bathrooms, cellars, pantries, lots of these. Wardrobes, he had whole rooms devoted to clothes. Kitchens, dining rooms, all were on the same floor, and indeed on the same passage. The best rooms were all on the left-hand side going in, for these were the only ones to have windows, deep-set round windows looking over his garden, and meadows beyond sloping down to the river. This hobbit was a very well-to-do hobbit, and his name was Baggins. The Bagginses had lived in the neighborhood of the hill for time out of mind, and people considered them very respectable, not only because most of them were rich, but also because they never had any adventures or did anything unexpected. You could tell what a Baggins would say on any question without the bother of asking him. This is a story of how the Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing and saying things altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbor's respect, but he gained, well, you will see whether he gained anything in the end. That's how that book starts and opens up. You read that to kids. Oh, Teresa, The Journey to the Center of the Earth and The Castaways, all good stories. Swiss Family Robinson. Treasure Island is a classic scary story. Pirates, they is. I remember when, I think I may have mentioned this before, because I tend to do that, when Abby and Bryn, my 30-year-old twin daughters now, when they were in vitro, they were still in the womb, and they were starting to get big, and my wife at the time, she was in third trimester, and you could see a lot of kicking and all of that. And I did the same for Sam. When Sam was in vitro, I would read stories to my kids in the womb. And all they've got in between is a little bit of tissue and muscle and skin. They can hear your voice. If you're screaming, they can hear you. If you're singing, they can hear you. They can hear music in the womb. It doesn't register the same way, but they're in vitro and they can hear things. I started reading to them, and I read Treasure Island to them while they were in the womb. And whenever I would start reading the book, they would move around inside their mother's tummy like unbelievable movements. You could see their feet going across the wall of the, and they reacted the same way when I read to them when they were little kids as well. So they became familiar with my voice, and I read to these little babies not yet born. I read them Treasure Island with all the voices, and I did Long John Silver and all those voices, and Jim Hawkins, and so we had a good time with that. But read to your kids. It excites them. It's a good thing to do. It's a good practice to get into. If you don't like reading, I know some of you out there, some of my very close friends out there, my neighbors, some of you don't like to read. Well, get over that. bad habit and read to your kids. Read animated, make it a fun time, make it something that they're going to enjoy, and then throw in the occasional scary story to get them going. So, what is everybody else having to say here? Apt pupil scared me when I read it as a kid. My neighbor was German. I don't know that story. I love books by R.A. Salvatore, says Steve Clark. I know the name, but I don't know if I can recognize one of his books off the top of my head. Huckleberry Finn, Teresa D'Antone says. There's a classic. Huck Finn. Tom Sawyer. And I've mentioned here before, I read To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee to my kids. And that had its scary moments. Scary in a different way. It wasn't ghosts. Well, they dealt with Boo Radley, the strange kid on the street, young man on the street. They dealt with the terrors of kids and stuff. And a fantastic story to read to your kids. I read some very good books. I think they're sitting right there, if I'm not mistaken. 2 books that I recommended to you in the past by Lauren Wolk. She wrote On the Bright Sea or something like that, and then Wolf's Hollow. Hang on. Let me see if they're right here. I want to show them to you again. Yeah, they're right here. Okay, these are 2 books that I got. I read a description of one of these books, and I bought it. And then I wrote her previous book. I bought her previous book after that. Oh, it's called by Lauren Wolk, Beyond the Bright Sea. What a wonderful, wonderful story. It's got its scary moments in it. Not ghosts, but scary moments. Bad guys and stuff like that. And takes place in the 1920s in, I want to say it's the, what is the big inlet that comes in out east in Massachusetts? Teresa, you should know. What's the big sea inlet that comes in the cove? I could probably find it if I looked here hard enough. I can't think of it. I asked you because you live in I can't think of where it is. Not Cape Hatteras Island area, but somewhere out there with the islands and stuff. I'm not sure what the I can't think. Chesapeake, maybe the Chesapeake Bay, Nantucket Sound. Yeah, Nantucket sounds right. It's got I think Paraquin Island is there. It used to be in the early 1900s. It was a leper colony was out there. And these are some of the true things she tied into her story. Cape Cod Bay, maybe out there. Here is the inside flyleaf of this book. And it says this: 12-year-old Crow has lived her entire life on a tiny, isolated piece of the starkly beautiful Elizabeth Islands. That's where it is, the Elizabeth Islands, in Massachusetts. Abandoned and set adrift in a small boat when she was just hours old, Crow's only companions are Osh, the man who rescued and raised her, and Miss Maggie, their fierce and affectionate neighbor across the sandbar. Crow has always been curious about the world around her, but it isn't until the night a mysterious fire appears across the water that the unspoken question of her own history forms in her heart. Soon an unstoppable chain of events is triggered, leading Crow down a path of discovery and danger. Vivid and heart-wrenching, Lauren Wolk's Beyond the Bright Sea is a gorgeously crafted and tensely paced tale that explores questions of identity, belonging, and the true meaning of family. And it's a really amazing book, guys. if you have not read this book before, it's put up by Dutton Children's Books, Penguin Young Readers Group. So it's part of Penguin Books, but Lauren Wilkes' Beyond the Bright Sea. And it's an amazing, amazing story. Lucky Smith says Elizabeth Islands are in Buzzards Bay. There you go. That's where the story takes place. And let's see, Matthew Sainsbury says he's talking about a book here, I think. Like Moses and Sargon of Akkad, they both were in the baskets discovered by people. Yeah, as was Osiris. You know what I think? I think that Moses' mom, it wasn't that, those are fake stories, because the same thing happened to Osiris and so on and so on and so on. I think Moses' mom knew what she was doing when she put him in a basket and put him on the Nile bank where the princes could find him. She knew what she was doing. She was linking into old Egyptian mythology. Then this other book of Lauren Wilkes is Wolf Hollow. And this was the second one I read to my kids. And what another amazing book this is. Some of the praise for this book is on the back cover. The honesty of Wolf Hollow will just about shred your heart. But Annabelle's courage and compassion will restore it to you fuller than before. This book matters. So said Sarah Pennypacker of the New York Times best-selling author of Pax. I've read Pax to my kids as well, about the little fox that was owned by the little boy. Someone else at the book list said, lies and secrets, even for the most noble of reasons, have unintended consequences, as Annabelle's poignant dilemma reminds us long after the last page is turned. Perfectly pitched to be used in classrooms in conjunction with To Kill a Mockingbird. And then Kirkus said of this book, trusting its readers implicitly with its moral complexity, Wilkes' novel stuns. And here's what the story's about. And it's on the flyleaf. It says this, growing up in the shadows cast by 2 world wars, Annabelle has lived a mostly quiet, steady life in her small Pennsylvania town until the day new student Betty Glengarry walks into her class. Betty quickly reveals herself to be cruel and manipulative. And while her bullying seems isolated at first, things quickly escalate, and the reclusive World War I veteran, Toby, becomes a target of her attacks. While the others have always seen Toby's strangeness, Annabelle knows only kindness, and soon she will need to find courage to stand as a lone voice of justice as tensions mount. Brilliantly crafted, Wolf Hollow is a haunting tale of America at crossroads and at a time when one girl's resilience and strength helps to illuminate the darkest corners of our history. Fantastic book, both of these. Guys, if you're looking for good books to read for yourself or to your kids or for your kids, Lauren Wilkes' books, Wolf Hollow and the Beyond the Bright Sea, are fantastic books. Well worth reading. Hey, Flynn. Good night. I love you, son. So that's a good book. Those are good books. So come in Captain's Cabin, Captain's Library. Pinch your nose and come in. So here's another one. We talked about the Golem and the Jinn. Listen to this. This is what this book is about. And I started reading this to my kids, even though it's not a kid's book. Helen Recker's dazzling debut novel tells the story of 2 supernatural creatures who appear mysteriously in 1899 New York. Shava is a golem, a creature made of clay, brought to life by a strange man who dabbles in dark Kabbalistic magic. When her master dies at sea on the voyage from Poland, she is unmoored and adrift as the ship arrives in New York Harbor. Ahmed is a jinn, being of fire born to the ancient Syrian desert, trapped in an old copper flask by a Bedouin wizard centuries ago. He is released accidentally by a tinsmith in a lower Manhattan shop. Struggling to make their way in this strange new place, the golem and the jinn try to fit in with their neighbors while masking their true natures. Surrounding them is a community of immigrants of the coffee house owner, Mariam Fadul, a pillar of wisdom and support for her Syrian neighbors. The solitary ice cream maker, Salah, a damaged man cursed by tragedy. The kind and caring Rabbi Meyer and his beleaguered nephew, Michael, whose sheltering house, in capital letters, sheltering house, receives newly arrived Jewish men. The adventurous young socialite Sophie Winston and the enigmatic Joseph Schall, a dangerous man driven by ferocious ambition and esoteric wisdom. Meeting by chance, the two creatures become unlikely friends whose tenuous attachment challenges their opposing natures until the night a terrifying incident drives them back into their separate worlds. But a powerful menace will soon bring the golem and the jinn together again, threatening their existence and forcing them to make a fearful choice. Marvelous and completely readable, the golem and the jinn weaves strands of folk mythology, historical fiction, and magical fable into a wondrously inventive and unforgettable tale. That's what I would love to have them say about the 10 Breaths of Ra when I finish it. That's an author's dream, is to have his book described that way. On the back cover, it says, from its eerie opening pages to its shattering conclusion, The Golem and the Jinn is an astonishing debut novel that sweeps us into a gaslit alternate reality rich enough to get lost in. A vision of fin de siècle. I don't even know this. Fin de siècle. Fin de siècle? That's a phrase in whatever language that is. Is that French? I mean, fin, Fin, D-E, cycle, S-I-E-C-L-E. Fin de siècle. 19th century New York is a city that had all the world's immigrants descending on it, including supernatural ones. In this world where crossing a street or rounding the corner shoots you halfway around the globe, where whole nations are packed into the space of a few blocks. Their folk traditions crammed in amongst the tenements and workshops. It seems weirdly plausible that two cultures' mythical creatures could meet on the Bowery and form a connection. It is Helene Wecker's triumph that these supernatural beings, one made of clay, the other of fire, seem as real and as poignant in their struggles for love and belonging as any of their fellow human immigrants, until they face a villain of truly monstrous proportions. That was from Tom Rees, the author of The Orientalist and The Black Count. Amazing book, again. Well worth picking up. So there you go. In Cold Blood, says Dave Potter. Who was it? That was Truman Capote. One of his stellar novels. And did you know, by the way, that Harper Lee, who wrote To Kill a Mockingbird, was a friend of Truman Capote's? And did you know she wrote him into the story as a boy, the boy that she knew? Dill, the little boy that plays with Scout, and the other kid characters in the book. Dill is modeled after Harper Lee's recollections of Truman Capote as a little boy, if you didn't know that. Teresa D'Antone read Frankenstein when she was just 9, and she loved it. Dracula, too. Of fantastic stories. Iowa X, my uncle was freaked out by In Cold Blood because they all lived out on a farm. Not much like that had happened in the 60s and the 70s. Yeah. And do you remember who was in that movie? If you remember that very dark film noir movie made in the 60s, it was Robert Blake. You may remember him the best by two things he did in his. Anybody know who, without looking it up, do you know who Robert Blake was? And who he played in the movies and on TV? He did a very famous character in Our Gang. He played Mickey, the little kid in Our Gang. The Our Gang movies are Little Rascals. And he also played in a TV show, a cop show called Beretta. How many of you remember that series? I don't know how long it lasted, but it seemed like when I was in junior high school, we watched that show religiously. I don't know if it lasted more than a season, maybe 2 seasons. So, but In Cold Blood was his first film debut as an adult. So, there you go. Lost Highway by David Lynch. Yep. Beretta with the cockatoo, Lucky Smith says. Exactly. The opening credits would end with that not from a cockatoo. I think it was music, but it was very interesting. And so that was a good show. Came out in the early to mid 70s. Yep, lived in an abandoned building with his cockatoo. And there was something else I was thinking of, another book that I thought of when you guys were talking here online. The Jungle by Upton Sinclair. I have not read that one. There were a couple of other really stellar books that I read. One by, I thought it was an Upton Sinclair novel. Or was it John Upton? I can't remember. Well known. I read some of his books. He wrote Cider House Rules, which was made into a movie with early Tobey Maguire movie with Charlize Theron. And who was it that played the schoolmaster in that? Good night, my princes of New England, or something he would call them, something like that. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea was a fantastic book. I've got a bunch of Jules Verne novels up there in newer format, of course. God, just to look at my shelves and start going through some of the books I have here are just amazing stories. I've got shelves filled with 100 years of story reading up here. I don't know how long it would take me to read every one of these books from cover to cover. I hope I never have that opportunity. That would mean we went through an apocalypse and there's nothing else to do, and all we're going to do for entertainment is sit and read books. So, but so many good things. There's new, more current books that are up there that I haven't finished. Some of them. I've got a stack of 35 books I haven't finished reading. Mr. Strange and Dr. Norrell is a good book. I think that's the way. I can see it from here. I just can't see the title. Here, I'm going to turn on my big light. Hold on. You'll see the difference. Let there be light. There's the big light. So my glasses will be broken. Yeah, that's it. So let's see if I can read that from here. It's I started reading. It's about magic in the 18th century, 19th century. I can't read it from here. Dr. Norrell and Mr. Strange, or Mr. Strange and Dr. Norrell, something like that. Good book. They actually did a little mini series on that too. So, let's see. What was that? Philip. He would probably write his adventures of the reptilian invasion. Who would that be? Jules Verne. So many books I have. All these books over here. Here, I'll show you this one. This is the one I read mostly to Flynn because the girls would fall asleep. But the John Carter of Mars series. I picked this up for like $5 on one of those Barnes and Noble tables. You know, where they have all their books that are all bound like this, and you know, you buy them for $10 or $5 or something like that. And this has all these books are inside this. A Princess of Mars, The Gods of Mars, The Warlords of Mars, Thuvia Maid of Mars, The Chessmen of Mars, and of course, John Carter of Mars. And I read this to Flynn, and he absolutely loved this book. And then he watched the movie afterwards and liked it. And even he noted, oh, the movie's not quite like the book, but man, yeah, it was good too. But fantastic book. Great book to read to kids, even though it was written over 100 years ago. Or about 100 years ago. Something like that. Philip Blair misses bookstores. Well, where are you? Do they not have bookstores in your town? I love bookstores. The only problem with the bookstore is I can walk in and empty my wallet really quick. So I have to be very careful when I go to a bookstore. So, The War of the Worlds covers are great. Morgan Snow says, great story. War of the Worlds. And yeah, so you go into Barnes & Noble, you can find a lot of these books like this, a lot of the classic books for sale. I've got over there, God, I don't even know if you can see it. I'm going to try it. If I turn, no, I can't turn it. I got too much junk on my desk. All around well, I got books there, and I got books there that don't fit anywhere. And the big shelf is over there, big shelves over there, and they just keep going and going and going. And that's one side of the room. And all that stuff is all the books that I've collected and gathered over the years. And I like reading, and I like reading to the kids. And there's so many titles over there of good things to read for my kids and for me. So I love collecting books. Robert E. Howard, his Conan stories and his tragic life. Yeah, he had a very tragic life, which is sad, but man, he wrote some good stories, didn't he? Over there, I have where I just pulled John Carter of Mars. I set up one shelf over there that's all kind of young adult books. Then another shelf way over there that's got all young adult and kids books down on the lower shelves for Ellery. And but even Rowan now is getting into the older books. She likes to read books on witches and witchcraft and Harry Potter types of fare, even though they're not so much into Harry Potter. And Flynn is more than the other two. I got a bunch of Tom Clancy novels over there. I got how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 Tom Clancy novels, hardcover over there. And Brad Thor is another one I like to read for suspense and spy thrillers and all of that. I got a bunch of his books over there. Do you remember the series Bones with David Benares or something like that? How you pronounce it? He now does the series SEAL Team. And they've been doing that for 5 or 6 years now. It's a really good series. And they went more independent. They went with not Discovery Plus, Amazon or Discovery Plus. I don't know which. CBS Plus. And it's a little grittier. You hear him saying fuck every now and then, which you couldn't do. And when the first time I heard him say fuck on the show, I went, oh, they must have moved this show off television network and onto cable network, or internet network. But I was going to say the show he was in, Bones. Do you remember that show with I can't think of the actress's name. Her sister is Zoe, somebody that was in the little sitcom about the young woman and her male roommates. But I've got some of the books by Kathy Reichs over there. The Bones books. The Bones TV series was based off of her series of novels about the character that was in Bones. Teresa D'Antone has all the Tom Clancy books too. Paramount. There says Iowa X. Thank you. I love that show. That is one of my all-time favorite shows, is SEAL Team. Philip Blair was listening to a witch story on an old-time radio rebroadcast here on YouTube. I wish we still had radio like that. Me too. Robert Ludlum. Oh, my God. Teresa. Robert Ludlum. In the early 1980s, when I left college and I started working, I remember Robert Ludlum was my go-to for books. I read every Robert Ludlum novel written. I didn't always read the ones that were written to pick up Ludlum's mantle. And they say Robert Ludlum, written by whatever the guy's name is. And but I read all of the Robert Ludlum novels. Robert Ludlum, if you don't know, folks, he created the Jason Bourne character, played by Matt. What's his name? Why can't I think of his name? Played him in 2 movies or 3 now. Matt wants to roll right off my tongue, and I can't say his name. But he wrote those novels, and I read all of his spy novels, Robert Ludlum. As a matter of fact, I think I picked up a lot of my style of writing from reading guys like Robert Ludlum, like Leon Uris, like, and of course, hints of Shakespeare. But you can't write like Shakespeare anymore. You can sometimes get that classical lilt to things, but and I think in the absence of a Robert Ludlum, you've got Brad Thor, writes amazing books. The Bourne Supremacy was one of them. Yep, the Bourne Identity, the Bourne Supremacy, the Bourne something else. I have not read any of Sidney Sheldon's books, I got to tell you. I always put him in a class of TV writer, type of writer, and I just never read his stuff. Philip Spy stuff. I haven't read Philip Spy. Or is it Spee? Or is it Spew? What else have I got over there? I've got a bunch of series of books over there. The Rick Riordan books, if you aren't familiar with those. The Red Pyramid, that little series of books. He wrote the Olympian books for kids. I've got most of those over there. Percy something in the Olympians. I've got that series of books for the kids. I've also got, what is the other series over there? I don't know if it's there or if it's on that other shelf. But there was another series like it, and I'm not seeing it there. But Ian Koifer, Ian spelled Eioin or something like that, Irish, wrote the Artemis Fowl books. Percy Jackson, that's it. Percy Jackson. The movies, The Matrix began with books, says Matthew. Deadwood sounded like Shakespeare, right for HBO. Deadwood was a good series. I enjoyed that. I was sad when that went off air. Another really good series that was on 15 more years ago, Carnival. Rainey and I I remember we weren't married yet. We were just dating. We were painting her living room one weekend, and we put in the Carnival series and binge watched that whole series off of DVD back then. James Patterson, I haven't read. I don't think I've read it. I'm well aware of him. And I'm just looking for some of the other series here that were good books. I don't have any series up here on this wall. But then I've got a lot of history down here, a lot of history over there, a lot of history on those shelves. I've got a whole section on Native America here, and a whole section of just about every book I could find on Custer and The Last Stand and Custer's relationship to the Native American tribes. I got a bunch of those books. That shelf has Egyptian books. It's a lot of Egyptian research books up on the top shelf over there. So, and the second shelf as well. I see Herodotus over there. He's that one. Watch my finger. Where's my finger going? Right there. Here's Herodotus. So, I think. Pretty sure. Can't tell from here. So, books. Books are a good thing. Books are a good thing to get your kids interested in. You get sucked into a Ludlam book in the first couple of pages, I swear, says Teresa. And I agree with you. Yeah, Reardon's a great author. So, I always look at that and I go, I would love to write series of books like Reardon did. But at the same time, I can't do that. I can't sit and write. I don't have time to write. And you wonder, how did these guys find time to write to where they now don't have to worry about time to write because they're making good money? It's all hinged sometimes on making a living. That sucks. I hate that part of it. My books take a back seat to things because I'm so busy doing things to make sure there's money coming in the door. Just the way it is. Have you read The White Lie by Jean Doubt? I have not. It's a historical thriller set in the south of France, very thoroughly researched, based on Christian lore, like the Da Vinci Code or Indiana Jones. Very cool. No, I haven't read that. The White Lie. I'd like to look that one up. It's another one you just made me think of when you mentioned that. Historical books. Oh, I loved The Mists of Avalon. We talked about that the other night. A fantastic book. So, by Morgan Llewellyn. I read almost everything written by Mary Stewart, who wrote The Crystal Cave, The Hollow Hills, and The Last Enchantment, the Merlin trilogy. Fantastic books, well researched historically. And then she wrote a fourth about Mordred, the Deadly Day or the Dark Day or the Fatal Day. It was something like that. It was the last book in that series she wrote. And I've got a bunch of her. Teresa, my favorite too, The Mists of Avalon. And all the Mary Stewart books. Yeah, I got all the Mary Stewart books. I started collecting them from antiquarian bookstores. Back in the mid-'80s, I read those novels. And then I found one in the thrift store. I collected one. I bought, I think, The Hollow Hills I found in through an antiquarian bookstore. And I bought it for like $40. I mean, years ago. It was already way out of print. But then I found in our little thrift barn here in New Richmond, where you could get books for $10, now $0.25. It's gone up. I found one of Mary Stewart's first edition books, The Crystal Cave, there. Oh, The Last Enchantment. Crystal Cave, Hollow Hills, The Last Enchantment, and whatever that fourth one was. The Outlander books are good, Philip. Yeah, they are good. They were very good. As a matter of fact, I've got Outlander, and I've got a couple more from that series as I find them, like at the thrift bookstore, I'll pick them up. Eastern Shore used bookstores had them all. Cool. What did she write? What was the other name she wrote under? Teresa? But the Outlander books are good. They made the series because the Outlander books were so outstanding. I picked up the first one, but I haven't opened it yet. I started reading it. It's very good. When I had COVID last year, I listened to Mists of Avalon, said Morgan Snow. Unabridged, you got the whole story. Good story. The mini series they did on that actually wasn't bad. It's just still squeezing a huge novel that's that thick into a mini series. It was well done, I thought. I had a couple of problems with it, but it was pretty well done. I liked who was the actress who played Morgana in The Mists of Avalon? The hair like Rainey's, the really dark raven hair. And I can't think of her name. You've seen her. She's been in other things. Is that the one with Sean Connery as a sheriff in space? No, that's a different Outlander movie. Same title, though. The Alien prequel. Pretty much. We'll do the narration for your audiobooks. I can't find you on audio, Scotty Roberts. I've got one book that was done in audio, and that was the Secret History. No, it was, as a matter of fact, I was just listening to it the other day. I picked it up and I listened to the guy reading it. Rainey goes, "What book is that?" I go, "It's my book." She goes, "Ooh." The Nephilim, The Rise and Fall of the Nephilim. You can get it on Audible. And I think you can get an Audible subscription for like $15 a month or something. And you can rent from their library. And Ian Fleming's books were great. James Bond. So Daphne du Maurier. Was that the nom de plume of Mary Stuart? Will I do the Philip Blair? I thought you said we'll do the narration for your books. I don't know if I would do them or not. I had always wanted to get. I would have loved in the early days of Tam O'Hare, which, by the way, folks, a little secret for those of you who like Tam O'Hare, it's in soft cover now. I'm going to re-release that in a hardcover through Amazon, done the same way we've done The Sword and the Clay. So we'll have to see how much money it's going to cost. So it's a much longer book. It's maybe 3 times as long as Sword and the Clay. But I'm looking into it. I started doing work on it today just to see if I could make it work or not. So you have that in a big oversized hardcover book. I originally had thought in the early days of Tam O'Hare, I would have loved to have gotten, I really wanted Liam Neeson to voice Tam O'Hare. And he could still do it. It just cost me a fortune. I don't have the money for it. I think I wrote his PR people like 15 years ago. And never heard anything back, of course. I just submitted for those of you interested, I just submitted a couple of demo reels to audiobooks and the company. See if I can pick up reading some books. That would be kind of fun. So I want to write a comic book. Less words and stuff, says Iowa X. I started by doing comic Iowa. I thought it was sitting here. There was a comic book I did I published it in 1988, a graphic novel. Let's see. I don't even know if I've got it handy. I just saw it not long ago. I think it's inside that glass shelf cabinet. And without seeing it, I'm not going to go over there and rummage for it. I'll find it some night. And I just released the one graphic novel. We started doing a series and just ran out of money and couldn't do it. Money is always the thing, isn't it? So it was called the Bloodlore Chronicles, or originally just Bloodlore. Science fiction. Space opera. It was really the retelling of the American Revolution as a space opera. Instead of the colonies, you had planets that were colonized and so on. And so it was superficial, light fare. I was in my mid-20s when I wrote that. And I wasn't even confident enough to write it myself. I didn't think I had what it took to be a writer. And I had a friend who wrote it for me as I dictated the storyline. Good night, Teresa. Good to see you. It's almost midnight out east. I suppose I should be wrapping it up over here too. Yeah, Matthew, everything's money, 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 money. Everything. Can't get anything done without it. And sometimes you can't get done the things you want to do because you got to stop to earn money. It's the way it is. All right, guys. I think we'll call it quits. Bonnie Bogwell, I'm not sure who that is. Oh, over on Facebook. That was a Facebook thumbs up. Thanks, Bonnie. I don't monitor the Facebook as much as I should. Sorry about that. It's hard to monitor the 3 different locations. So I stick pretty much to the YouTube. But glad that you were over there, Bonnie. Thank you. And tomorrow night, we're going to talk about Glastonbury Tor. What a great place. And we're going to throw up some photos, too, and have some fun with photos. For those of you listening who listen audibly on radio only, you're not here right now because that's over. But they're going to miss out on a visual treat. So we'll try to get them over here for that. Matthew said there's a black pharaoh that may have helped Tahark. He may have helped Hezekiah from Sennacherib. Maybe he did. Cool. That's probably a good story right there. Okay, guys. I'm out of here. I'm not on Twitch. Sad to say. Sorry, I was thinking 3 locations. The audio at the radio studio, or radio station. Odyssey Radio is actually a radio station. And then we've got Facebook, and then we've got YouTube. Those are my 3 locations. I don't have to do much with at all with Odyssey Radio. That's just audio that's carried live. You just can't see the pictures over there. So be here for Glastonbury Tor tomorrow for sure. I've been there twice to Glastonbury Tor, and I got stories to tell. Not too detailed stories, but stories about being there. And but we'll save those for tomorrow night, and I'll dig up as many of my photos of Glastonbury Tor as I can, and even photos that aren't mine, because we're going to talk about Joseph of Arimathea and planting the thorn tree there, as the mythology says. Did you know that there was mythology that Joseph of Arimathea may have been related to Jesus, like an uncle or something like that? But the mythology says that he went to the British Isles after the death of Jesus, planted the thorn tree there. And I want to see what the efficacy is of that myth. Because it's said that he was a rich man, and his money came from dealing in tin, and that he had crossed the Mediterranean or traveled around the Mediterranean and had traveled to what is now Great Britain, to the British Isles, and that he brought the young Jesus with him. And so that he planted the tree on the hill opposite Glastonbury Tor. So it's interesting. Interesting. We'll talk about this stuff. Those the Dane stories? Are you talking about this one, or the Dane stories would be like they did a series on either Netflix or Amazon, The Last Kingdom, I think it was called. There was a series of books done on the Danes in Great Britain. So what else we got? Joseph Marathia, I heard so. Good night. Okay, anyway, on and on we go. We could go forever. I could talk forever about books. So, guys, and I'm not the biggest bookophile out there. So I just like what I like. Joseph sailing to Great Britain. I don't know if that had anything to do with Danes. I doubt it, because it would have been a lot earlier than the Danes. It would have to have been the ancient Danes, Iron Age Danes, something like that. So, The Last Kingdom was an excellent series. It was. The main character, maybe a little less than what the book character was. I've heard people be more unkind and see the prissy fellow that plays Uthred in the series. Perhaps the Philistines. Maybe they were the seafaring people. But we'll get into that tomorrow night. A bookophile. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go to bed. You should do the same, or read a book, do something like that. So thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. Fun to hang out with you. You know what? Live long and prosper. Good night.